thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jarrett Ransom, your nonprofit nerd, and this is another session of the Director's Dialogue. I'm really excited today because we have with us Michael Sapienza, and Michael is the CEO of the Colorectal Cancer Alliance. He's in DC, and he's the CEO of the Alliance. He lost his mother to this disease back in May of 2009. So I really loved hearing his story because he took his profound grief and he took action. So he's inspiring and challenging the colorectal cancer community, family, friends, other professional associates to follow his lead and dedicate themselves to ending colorectal cancer within our lifetime. Michael, this is phenomenal, and I always love hearing if I dare say, a tragic story turning to something that's positive, educational, inspirational, and really just, like I said, that educational component. So I'm looking also to learn from you. Someone connected us, and this is really our first time in dialogue together. So thank you first and foremost for joining us today on the Director's Dialogue. And tell us more about your passion of, again, like that tragic situation. Losing a parent is never easy. So I kudos to you on turning this into something positive. And I would love to hear more about that journey.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first, thank you for having me, on this, for this discussion. I talk about, the story of how first the organization Chris for Life was formed. So my mom's name was Chris, actually. She unfortunately passed away on Mother's Day, as you said, in 2009. But I'll go back just a little bit. I was a professional musician. I had traveled all around the world. At the time, I was living in Miami Beach, Florida. Nice, hot summer, humid, everything you can imagine. Performing with Yo-Yo Ma and others, Renee Fleming and such. And actually, the weekend that I found out she was diagnosed, I was performing with Yo-Yo Ma, and her and my dad both called me on the phone, and I knew something wasn't right, because normally it's one of them that was calling me. And my mom says, Michael, we've hit a bump in the road. It's the first thing she said to me. She said, Michael, we've hit a bump in the road. And I knew immediately. I'm like, well, what do you mean? What's going on? And she said, well, they found a large tumor in my colon. And the first thing that goes to my head is, where the heck is your colon, right? I mean, you don't really know. Most people don't talk about this part of your body and don't really know exactly what it does. What's your intestine? It has something to do with poop probably, but what does this really mean? And obviously it turned very serious very quickly. My mom suffered for about 2.5 years from the disease. And I learned a lot during that time. I learned that colorectal cancer or colon cancer or rectal cancer is the second leading cause of cancer-related death for both men and women combined in the United States, only behind lung cancer. Mm. At the time when we started this organization, the largest nonprofit in the world had a budget of $1 million to fight this disease. So I knew something had to be done. I knew it's like, you were seeing Susan Ducoman, you were seeing Leukemia Lymphoma Society, you were seeing all this that happened in the HIV/AIDS community, just unbelievable stuff happening. And, I obviously losing my mom kind of turned that thought into, okay, what can I do? My older brother, who's actually a biomolecular physicist, a lot smarter than I am, obviously, he asked me, he said, Michael, what's going on? You seem very distracted. And this was actually before my mom passed. I had been advancing at auditions. I was runner-up for the Med. All these different things. And he said, what's going on? I said, well, I'm not in it right now. I don't know why, but I'm not. And he's like, well, because mom's sick and this. And he said, what would you do if you had $1 million? I did not skip a beat. And I said, I would start a colon cancer foundation. And that's what we did.
I love that story. And, it goes to show you that with the passion and the dedication, you're a musician by trade, right? And which I want to know what instrument, what's your thing? I
played the trumpet, classical trumpet. Yep.
Very beautiful. So you didn't really have a nonprofit background. Did I hear that correct?
Yeah, I would say yes and no. So as a musician, I participated and was very involved in a lot of the boards of the orchestras that I performed and played with. So whether you're talking about the Chicago Symphony, the Civic Orchestra of Chicago, Chicago Chamber Musicians, the New World Symphony, I knew how nonprofits worked. Right. I much understood also the development area of those nonprofits, and how do we really create an infrastructure of giving. So orchestras have a very interesting way of raising money, and from a very young age, even when I was probably in college, I was very interested in it. So no formal training, but obviously had maybe hands-on or at least anecdotal experience through the experiences I had.
Yeah. So that makes me wonder, really, tell me about forming the nonprofit. I mean, did $1 million fall out of the sky, and did your board members just automatically show up? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So my family was not wealthy. We did not have $1 million. I was fairly lucky at the beginning. I got a $25,000 check, which, when we started in 2010, that was a lot of money. With this idea of, we're going to become the largest colorectal cancer advocacy organization in the country was already in my head. That was probably my gift as, the vision, the passion, the anger kind of at that time. But a connection that I had, actually, the New World Symphony, helped us found the organization. And I knew that, if we really wanted to grow and we wanted to create programs, that we had to start creating a community, and we had to start small. And we weren't going to get $1 million check right away, although I probably in the back of my head really wanted to get $1 million check, but didn't, right? And so we started creating, small events here in Washington, D.C., and that eventually, helped us grow.
So those small events, and I do many of those with my clients here. I'm based in Arizona, but I also work nationwide. So we've kind of, used that model where you have someone maybe host a cocktail party at their home, or a dinner or brunch. So who were these people to you, and it kind of in your life at that time? Were they already board members? Were they family? Were they just, other supporters?
Sure. So I think there's an important distinction here to make. So for me, I'll once again tout myself a little bit. I'm a connector, and I think the passion that I have for this mission and the vision that we set out, to do for the community, it really attracted, not starting with my mom's family or my family and my mom's family and friends, right? It started as that kind of like inner circle. And then those people started, okay, what was the pipeline to reach additional people? But it really had to be a very pure mission, right? It had to be, we really had to connect with these people. I had to spend a lot of time with them, and I enjoyed doing that, and I was good at it. And so I do think that it had to start with that. So how do we get passionate people that also have the same culture that I do? We have to end this disease within our lifetime. The colorectal cancer is killing way too many people. We don't have enough resources to whether fund research or patient family support or screening, right? Get passionate people involved, and then, put the infrastructure in place to hopefully see that grow to be able to fund the programs that we were going to, implement.
Relationships definitely can make or break an opportunity, and I found that really. And whether it's Kevin Bacon's 6 degrees of separation, although nowadays with social media, regardless of the platform, right, I really think there's a way to find a connection and to find that opportunity to build a relationship. So I love that's really what you did. I love that you own your talent of being a connector, because that is so critical. I just had a phone call the other day, and someone wanted to know about, sponsorships. How do I attract companies to sponsor my very newly formed nonprofit? And I said, well, first and foremost, it's never the shotgun approach, right? It's all about relationships, and every approach creates a strategy. So, it's really just the behind the scenes work before you even pick up the phone or have coffee or meet someone to ask for that level of support. And so I love that you knew, Michael, like right away, that being a connector is definitely going to serve you, and keeping it to that pure mission is.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but people always ask me, how do you ask for money?
Yeah.
Are you okay with doing this? You're good at it, and
right.
How do you do it? And obviously, it goes back to, like, I loved my mom deeply. I miss my mom, but now I still see people every day whose family have been touched by this disease, I think about the things that some of our society spends money on. And if you think about colorectal cancer or cancer in general, or, any of health or non-health related, charity or cause, I believe deeply in it. And so I have no problem, asking for that. It's an investment in my opinion. And I think that investment, at least in my experience, has really paid dividends to impact our community. So, sometimes it is hard, but I always stretch the ask. I always, if I see that this person has given, let's just start small, $5,000, I'm going to ask them for $10,000. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to tell them, this is what your additional money will do for our cause.
Absolutely. I'm weird like that too, Michael. I love having the opportunity to ask someone to make an investment. And that's the exact words that I use too. So many times people are scared. They're afraid to ask. It's kind of like, the business owner that's afraid of sales. Well, how are we going to get ahead? How are we going to support our mission and that bottom line to make that positive impact in so many families and so many individuals, above and beyond your mom, because this still exists. This disease is still very relevant. It's still second in the nation. So, how do we make that impact? And first and foremost, I say it's education, but secondly, right, it's asking, it's making that opportunity of investment possible.
Yeah, so, that old adage about, you never know if someone's going to give until you ask them. And the number one reason why someone doesn't give is because you haven't asked. I mean, I learned that very early on, and I'll be honest, I still make that mistake sometimes. You get up in your work, and it's like, you just need to ask them for something. Even if you start small and then you cultivate them for a larger gift, I think it's very important.
Right. No, absolutely. So tell me about your board, Michael. Do you have the same board members when you started, or, and bringing them into the culture of the organization you've created? So tell me how that's worked for you.
Sure. So right now there is one board member that was there when we started, and actually that's my father. Everybody else now is new, but I will tell you the way that I kind of really, I guess I copied some of the things that I learned as a musician, and in knowing that these people have to invest their time, they have to invest their resources, meaning money and time, and they have to be able to be willing to really connect us to other people. And also, I think most importantly for me is that commitment and that passion and the culture of really, really caring and believing that we can end this disease in our lifetime. I do think there's thousands of nonprofits in this country, and the question is, what kind of impact do you make? And yes, everybody holds management, us, the folks that work in a nonprofit accountable, but do we hold the board accountable? Does the board have metrics? Does the board have goals? And I've done, I think, a pretty good job. I think I could do a better job. We always can do a better job. But as of really, number one, setting term limits. So you don't want a founding board that is there forever. That is not going to help sustain and scale an organization. You really want to make sure that you set a give or get. You really want to make sure that you have a set number of board meetings. You want to make sure that you have a strong governance and a strong fiduciary representatives on the board. And you want to make sure that there is just this permeating culture of, for me, it's entrepreneurship and giving, and a real true caring sense about how we could, take this, small organization 7-8 years ago to be the largest in the world.
Absolutely. So did that start like year one? We're all fires, all pistons firing and everything was working. Your board was showing up, they were giving, they were connecting, they were rolling up their sleeves and helping you. Did that happen day one?
So I would say yes, but on a different level, right? So it's, people now are giving in the hundreds of thousands, almost to the millions. Then it was in the hundreds of dollars to the $1,000, right? So yes, to say that we didn't have board members that I brought on that were a mistake, quote unquote,
sure,
or that didn't give, or that weren't the right fit. Absolutely, I had to make those mistakes, and at the beginning, I also feel like you want to even if your board's not perfect, you want to surround yourself with people because that's how you're going to find more people to bring. I think one of the mistakes that some people make is that everything has to be perfect when you first start. or even as you continue, right? And I err on the side of, maybe a little bit too not perfect enough sometimes, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit from an operations standpoint, but I think it's actually helped us scale and grow quicker, because the more people that you get involved, the more people you can connect with, the more companies you can connect with, even if it ends up not being the right fit. I think in the overall scheme of things, it's really helped us grow fast.
No, I think that's great. And I always say, start with a 1.0 board, then you'll graduate, you'll evolve as your organization evolves, your board member evolves, the financial donations evolve, like everything just takes, to the next level. So you mentioned you wanted to talk about, some things that maybe weren't perfect in operations. Give it to us. We want to hear it, because the point of this dialogue is really to share your story of being the founder of this organization.
Sure.
Maybe some hiccups along the way, some road bumps, because we all have them. I joke and say, I believe in course correction, right? So it's like, I'm doing the best I can today. And when I know better, I will do better or do differently.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I kind of equate it to the executive director, CEO, president, whatever you want to call the head of the organization, is a conductor. And I go back to my days as a musician. And the conductor is going to make sure that the trumpet player, the violin, the percussion, the violas, the cellos, the bass, everybody is doing what they should be doing, and really kind of creating this piece of music, let's just say, right? And if let's say the basses and the percussion aren't running on time, it's going to be all out of whack. But I have to figure out what are my strengths within the orchestra, right? Is my strength the rhythm? Is it the overall tune? Is it the melody? What is it? And if you think about that in terms of business, so my strengths are not operations, finance, technology, right? Those aren't my strengths. I don't have a ton of experience there. And so I have had to bring in people that are way smarter than I am in every one of those pieces. So I had to bring in a really good bass player. I had to bring in a really good percussion player. I had to bring in a really great concert violinist who can help, lead the total operations of the string section. And to be honest, I learned that in some ways the hard way. There were times where I got way out ahead of my skis in spending, right? And, we didn't go bankrupt or anything. And we continued to be able to meet most of our obligations. But I will say that, the moral of the story for me is, you have to play on your strengths, and you have to be able to surround yourself with people that know way more than you do, and that continue to be able to grow themselves, right? One of the reasons why I think I have continued to be leading in this field is I myself have also been, professionally and personally growing. If I hadn't, and I don't continue, let's say in 5 years, I don't continue to do this, let's say our organization's 50 million in 5 years, and I'm not able to do that, I shouldn't be the CEO. So it's incumbent upon me and other people within the organization to be able to continue to professionally grow. And that, for me, it's mentors, and who can I talk to that has done this before me, or I'm going to do it differently, but what can I learn from them?
I always say our community is a puzzle piece, right? And everyone has, because I'm not a trained musician, is that everyone has their puzzle piece. And when you put them all together, you make this beautiful image.
Sure.
And and that to me is the analogy. I love yours. It absolutely fits, and especially with your background and experience.
Yep.
And I'm curious, Michael, tell me what it was like when you hired your first paid staff. So once you realized, this is not my skill set, this is not my zone of genius, I need to bring someone in at that expert level. How did that work for you? Because that's a big step for an organization that's starting out.
Sure. I think it was, obviously, I was all consumed with this. And so there was a little bit of a relief, but then there's also like, okay, I'm certainly controlling over this, that, and the other. And I think it's been an evolution of how do I let go?
Sure.
And I think that's really, really, really important. I'm still controlling, but you have to figure out, what am I controlling about? Most leaders are fairly controlling, right? But how do I figure out, as I evolve and as we bring people that know more than I do, or that come onto the organization, how do I figure out what are the things that I should be controlling? What are the things that I shouldn't be controlling? And where do I let these folks shine and show, all right, Michael, here's what I know about marketing and communications. You don't have any idea what you're talking about, And that's our success as an overall organization. So I think it's been just like everything else, has been an iterative process, and I continue to learn how to do that better as we get larger.
Yeah. And I'm curious too, do you mind or do you recall, like, who was the first person? What was their role? And then kind of that trajectory, how did you build to your team of excellence? So I'm curious if you can recall that, like, tell us who you hired and their positions.
So the first person was an unpaid intern. I relied heavily at the beginning on both our board. We had a very, very heavy working board. Then we have an business advisory board. We had a young professional board. So we had multiple individuals for probably the first year and a half that weren't paid, that put together all of our events, that volunteered their time, that helped us raise money, that did all these things. And then once we probably had like a $250,000 budget, it was like, okay, we need somebody that's actually going to be here in the office helping us with operational things. And so the first person that we hired was a young woman, and she really was a generalist. She had to be a generalist because it was one person, but really it was operations. So it was, how do we get things done for our events? How do we start some of these programs that we wanted to create? And then I think from there, I had to, and from the very beginning, I had mentors. So I remember my first mentor was a woman that was the head of the Susan G. Komen of the Mid-Atlantic. And what's interesting, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but I learned a lot from her about how do you build a team and who do you bring in to build that team? What are the different functions of the organization? And then I would say every time we kind of took a step in the ladder of organizational growth, I found another mentor or did my own research, looking at 990s, looking at organizational structures, et cetera, to see how, we can continue to grow. Right now, I'm doing that as well, right? So we're at a point now where we're about a $13 million organization. So we've doubled in the last 2.5, 3 years, which is incredible. And so how do we then create an infrastructure to get to the next level? And now I need to go to somebody else to figure that out and continue to do the research. So
it's so true. And I love what you said about, that personal development. You're always growing. You're always looking at what skill sets can I bring in you so that you can be the leader of the organization and maintain that knowledge at that level. And what you just said, is you have someone at this level and then you grow and you get what you need. You find who you need to partner with, what those resources are. And I think it's brilliant. And I love that you're sharing that with all of us today. Because it's so true. I mean, what we start today and what it could be in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years is very different. And those resources and the systems and the networks that they need to be, they change.
Yeah, what's interesting is that there's all these pieces that have to happen to make a nonprofit or any business really grow and be successful and have impact. But I kind of always go back in the back of my head, and it's weird, but I have this unbelievable belief, and I know unbelievable belief is kind of a oxymoron there, but that we will succeed and that we will end this disease. And it's this weird faith that I actually have, like, in that it will happen. And I do think that that's an important part of just the overall conversation, because I think a lot of times, of course, have I wanted to quit? Yes. Have I thought that we're going to fail? Yes. But I think overall, that belief in the back of my head, maybe it's my mom's voice on my shoulder saying, you can do this.
Yeah. That's a great point. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard from founders, they call me in tears, right? Their family relationships are breaking up. Their personal health is getting worse. And they tell me, like, I want to stop. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I don't know that I'm built, or designed to do this. So thank you for sharing that, Michael, because that's reality. And those days, I'm going to call them days, maybe moments, maybe sometimes they string together and it's an entire month. It happens, right? And for me, it's not just being a founder of a nonprofit. It's living life all out, and those days come regardless.
Yeah. So, I think for me, a lot of it is, I'm surrounded by death a lot, right? People die of this disease and you become very close to them. I've had to learn how to build some walls. You can build as big of walls as you want, but to be honest, I'm an empathetic person, and no matter how big the wall is, I can still see that someone's suffering. And so it is really hard. And, I used to be a huge runner, and I think because I got so consumed with my work my self-care here kind of deteriorated a little bit. I started CrossFit in January and February, and I'll tell you, it's a lifesaver. You know, and I'm carved out. The only time I have for myself is 2 hours in the morning, and an hour of that is CrossFit. And, you know, as we've grown and as we've continued to scale, it is an essential piece of my well-being. So.
Yes. Thank you. Another guest mentioned that too, that you know, when those moments happen or those days or they string together and they are longer, take time for yourself to recharge, to unplug. I mean, nowadays we're tethered to these things, you know, whether it's, you know, a phone or a watch or something, like we're constantly inundated with someone that needs us or a deadline or a deliverable that, you know, we just need to do. So taking care of yourself, you're right, is a great thing. I'm a big camper and hiker, and that's what I love to do here. I just need to be in nature. And honestly, for me, Michael, it's like, put me in the woods where my phone won't work. And that's what I need to unplug.
I hear you.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful. You have shared some amazing like nuggets and information, especially for founders and, you know, all the buzzwords when it comes to sustainability and scalability and growth. So thank you like for all of this. And again, for taking the time to share your story with us. I know I want to learn more about this organization personally. And would you mind sharing with us, you know, if we want to support you, if we're looking for ways of how we can engage and learn more about the Colorectal Cancer Alliance, where do we go and how do we best support you?
Sure. So the easiest place is obviously our website, ccalliance.org. You know, we have 3 main programs. We have a research program, patient family support program, and screening program. But we also have our Run Walk series all across the country. And actually our Gala series, the Blue Hope Bash series, is expanding pretty aggressively as well. So
that's wonderful. So we'll definitely check you out on the website, and I'm sure from there that will lead us into the web of connections. So I'm sure we'll find you on social media as well. So, well, thank you again, Michael. I'm very grateful for you for sharing your story. And, you know, now that I know the story of your mom, Chris, and I will always hold you and your family close to me. And again, just know that this is a disease that's out there. It's very real and not really talked about. And I love how in the very beginning, you're like, you know, where is your colon? And I'm sure it has something to do with poop, because you're right. Like it's anything that has to do with bathroom, it's not really talked about. So yeah.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thank you for bringing attention. You know, it's really great that you do this. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Michael.